Having a stoma can be a fairly lonely experience. Mistake number one is doing nothing. Mistake number two is doing too much. Number three, which I guess sums it all up, is, so for a bit of context, this video I'm going to be talking about the three biggest mistakes that I see ostimates making when it comes to exercise. There are other aspects of stoma care that we could talk about in a separate video, but being an EP, I'm most interested and most concerned about your exercise. So mistake number one is doing nothing. Now, when I ask a new ostomate, or new client I should say, right, what kind of exercise do you do? Oftentimes the response is nothing. And unfortunately, that's not very helpful. Now, it's understandable, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately though, there's a couple of issues with this, that you either use it or lose it. Now that applies to everything. You know, your arms, your legs. And so if you're not doing any structured activity, structured exercise, you're going to get weaker in those other limbs as well, right? And then when it comes specifically to your core, well, a lot of times people will say, I don't want to cause, for example, a hernia, so I don't want to stress myself out. But unfortunately, again, with the core, if you don't train it in a proper way, that's also going to get weaker, which unfortunately only increases your risk of a parastomal hernia. You've got to get into the mindset of wanting to do something, some sort of structured physical activity. And a good starting point is, simple as going for a walk. Going for a 10-minute walk, once a day, twice a day if you can, and that adds up at the end of the week, right? So something gentle, and of course, then we'll talk about other things you could do later on. Mistake number two is doing too much. So the opposite of mistake number one is, wanting to get back into exercise, but actually going full speed ahead and doing things that perhaps they're not ready for just yet. I often tell my clients that when it comes to exercise and physical activity, there's not a lot that you won't ever be able to do, but it's a matter of, can you do it now? Or is this something you have to come back to in 6 months' time, right? And so mistake number two that I see some people make, not spending the time in building the foundations, doing the groundwork, but jumping ahead. The number three, lastly, I would say, is not seeking help or not seeking the right advice. Now, again, this is understandable because having a stoma can be a fairly lonely experience. It can be fairly isolating. Oftentimes my clients tell me that, they're the only ones in their family and friend circle who have a stoma. And so people don't understand, the ins and outs. And so you start going out less and you start interacting with your family less, unfortunately, which, shouldn't be the case. I mean, that's what all this help and advice is around, is to help you live your best life. But unfortunately, that somehow translates to people not seeking the right medical advice either. And so that is unfortunate, and I see that often. And of course, the consequences of that, of trying to figure out yourself, is sometimes you can fall into one of those first two mistakes. You either do nothing at all because you don't know what to do, or you try and do something, but then you do the wrong thing or you do too much of it, and then that can lead to risks. And so my advice would be there, seek out a medical professional. If you're looking to do some exercises, seek out an exercise physiologist or a physiotherapist who knows a thing or two about stomas. But do your research and then go and seek advice and help them through it, and let them help you as well. So hopefully that helps. So those were my three biggest mistakes. Number one is doing nothing at all. As I said, that's not helpful. Number two is doing too much. Again, that is not great. It's the right sort of mindset. I like that, but you got to tone it down a little bit. And number three, which I guess sums it all up, is seek advice and seek help and work with an exercise professional who can help you to avoid the first two mistakes. So if that was helpful, guys, feel free to share this with somebody who might need it. So you might know somebody else who has a stoma who's been thinking about exercise, and this might help them. And of course, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try and get around to them and answer them as quickly as I can. So till next time, take care and be safe.